Okay, so this is going to be looking straight at the front of the wall. So we've already drawn the cross section of this in a previous drawing. So now we're looking at the face of the wall. And remember, we've got the double top plate. This is the two 2x4s that run along the top edge of the wall. We've got all the studs that are 16 inches on center, meaning from the center to center to center is 16 inches all the way down the wall. And then you've got your sill plate or your sole plate down here at the bottom. This is the bottom of the wall. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how to frame in a door or a window. Okay, so first of all, we have to determine where in this wall we're going to put this door and this window. And I'm going to say that our window is going to go like right in this area right here. And so in order to put this window in, we're going to have to get rid of some studs or some parts of some studs. So what I'm going to do is I am going to erase out a section right in here where this window is going to be located. Okay, so this is where our window is going to be located, somewhere right in here. So what we're going to do is once we know what the um, how big this window is going to be both horizontally and vertically, we're going to put two new studs in, one that's going to be on the left side, one that's going to be on the right side of where this window is going to be. Now, when we put in this window, we're not just putting a piece of glass in our wall. This piece of glass comes framed and encased in a big window casement. So it's a big unit. It's this big box, basically, that has, the windows, the frames, everything is inside this big window box. And so what we're doing is um, we have to make a location to put this big window box. Now, would you agree at this point, my wall has been made weaker? Would you agree? I've taken out two studs, basically the functionality of two studs. So at this point, my wall is much weaker. So I have to do something to this area to strengthen this area of the wall, or this top is going to buckle under the weight of the roof. So what I need to do to still put a window in here is I need to reinforce all the way around it so that the window is still, you know, strong enough to hold up this part of the wall. So I'm going to start by putting in two new studs, and they go on the left side and the right side of where um, this window encasement is going to go. So I'm going to determine where the edge of the window is and put in two new studs. So these two new studs are called king studs. Those are the two new studs that I built so that the window has something to be held against. So those are called king studs. Then above the window, I'm going to put in what is called a header. Now the header, the size of the header will differ depending on how big the window is. The bigger the window, the bigger the header. Um, right now it's not a huge window, and so the header doesn't have to be huge. In fact, there's a chart in the book, in our textbook, that shows the header sizes. And again, it's just the bigger the window gets, the thicker the header has to be, because we've got this big hole in our wall, and so this header is kind of taking up the slack for the big hole. Um, the header is making the wall stronger because of the hole. So when we get back to the classroom, we'll take a look at the book and we'll see the chart that has the headers in it. So this header is attached to these two studs and to the king stud, and these two studs that were basically cut because of the window, these take on a new name. So they are now called uh, one of two names. They're either called a jack stud or a cripple stud. So they're either called jack studs or cripple studs. Now I'm not sure. I understand cripple studs because we chopped them in half, so we crippled them. But I don't know. Maybe Jack was the guy that decided to do it, or maybe they just said we jacked them up by cutting them. So I don't know. So that's these down here as well. Okay, these are called jack studs or cripple studs also. Now, the header is just kind of hanging here at this point. So we're going to put a new stud in attached to the king stud. But what we're going to do is we're going to put in the bottom first, and then we're going to sandwich some new studs in the middle here. So here's how we do it. We're going to put in the bottom of the window. Okay, and this is called a sill. I hope we'll zoom in a little. And we're going to put this new stud, we're going to cut it so that it goes here, here, and here. We're going to cut this new stud into three pieces. We're going to nail it to the king stud on top of, underneath, and underneath the header and the sill. So it's going to look like this. And there's one over here also. Okay, and that is called a trimmer stud. Okay, so the trimmer stud it helps hold up the ends of the sill. It helps to hold up the ends of the header, and it goes up above the header as well. So it's basically a stud that's been sandwiched in between here, here, and here, 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 and here. Those are called trimmer studs. And what we've just done is we've created what is called a rough opening. And this opening here is where you would take the window casement, this big box that holds the window in it, and you'd get a couple of guys on the inside of the house, a couple of guys on the outside of the house, and you would take this big window casement and you would put it up in this rough opening. Well, they call it a rough opening because it's roughly the size of what you need for this window. It's a little bit bigger. The rough opening is a little bit bigger than the window. Then they'll take what is called a shim, S-H-I-M. Let me show you what that looks like. So a shim is a little triangular, a thin triangular stick is basically what it is. And once the window casement is inside the rough opening, they'll take these little shim sticks and they will push them in between the header and the window, and the sill and the window, and the trimmers and the window, and they'll shove these shims in between all the way around. And basically what it does is, because this is a triangular shim, if the rough opening is not perfectly square, which the odds of it being perfectly square are very slim, they'll take these shims, and the deeper they push them underneath the window, the thicker the shim gets, and it can take a crooked window and it can straighten it out by pushing shims underneath it and around it so that it can adjust until it's perfectly level. And then after it's perfectly level, they'll cut the part of the shim that's sticking out from underneath and over, above, and all around. They'll trim off those little shims, and then they'll cover this entire area with drywall on the inside and with plywood on the outside. They'll cover everything up, so all that you see is the nice window. You don't see any of the construction around the window, right? So that's how you frame in a window. So to frame in the door, it's a little different. So let me slide over here, and we'll do the same thing for trimming in a door. So let's say that the door is going to be here. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut these two studs, and I'm going to erase. Okay, so again, the first thing we do is we determine how big this door is. And the first thing we're going to put in are two new king studs to sandwich in on the left side and the right side this door. So let's just put in a new set of king studs. There's a king stud. We'll put a king stud over here. We got king studs. And again, the second thing, just like when we did our window, the second thing that goes in is the header. Now the header, the height of the inside or the bottom side of the header needs to be the same on the door and the window. So bottom edge here's my header. And again, the header size is determined by how big this door is. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the trimmer. I don't need to put in a sill, right? The sill is only for the bottom of the window. So I'm going to put the trimmers next to the king studs. There's one trimmer stud. And then I need to get rid of the sole plate down here at the bottom. So I need to cut here. I need to cut here. Yeah. You don't want to have to step over top of a sill plate, sole plate. Okay, so we cut out the sill plate so we don't have to step over it when we go into a room. And what we've created here is the rough opening for a door encasement or a door's casement. So same thing, you don't just buy a door. You buy a door that has a frame around it that's been encased um, in this box, and you put the entire box inside the um, the rough opening. You take some more shims. You shove the shims in between the header and the door casement and the trimmers and the door casement. You shove them all the way around. You take this crooked door and you make sure that it's perfectly straight. Then you cut off the pieces of the shim that are sticking out, and then you right, you cover everything with either drywall or on the outside plywood, and you have your door. So that is how you do the framing of the door and the window. So just remember that you've got, these are cripple studs, these partial studs here, cripple studs. You got your sill plate, your sole plate. From the outside in, king stud, trimmer stud, rough opening, trimmer stud, king stud. Same thing, king stud, trimmer stud, trimmer stud, king stud. So all of those are new studs that you have to put in. And anything that's been cut are called cripple studs or jack studs. Okay, so that is the framing. Window and door framing. Okay, so let me stop the recording.